I think that the business overall was changing at the time. And what Paul did, Paul was a genius in how Paul presented his product. Paul took a television show, or made a television show out of live events that were often long, some might even say boring if you were there live in some respects, overall. But he took the absolute best parts of those events and put together a television show with popular music, with great editing, and made these guys stars that you never got to see them work. You go back to the early ECW and what really made ECW. Their television show was a compilation show.
Right.
Music videos, man, it was fast. It was intense. You didn't have time to breathe. And then all of a sudden they said, let's ring the bell and have a match. And that wasn't the strong point of the aura of ECW. Paul had built ECW on this aura. These guys are so extreme, we do this, and this is what you get with ECW. You got it, but that was maybe 2 minutes out of a 20-minute match. So that was the beauty of ECW. You couldn't replicate that. Paul couldn't replicate it if he had to present a show, a total show like that. And it's not a knock on the guys. It's just the way that Paul presented it at first was, in my opinion, I thought it was genius. I just wish he would have continued in that vein. And I think people would have, you get past the novelty of it, and you can come in a couple times a year and hit markets with it, and they're going to forgive you. Because it was a neat concept. But as far as how much influence that had on anything that we were doing, not a whole lot. Because, again, Vince wasn't really interested in that much stuff. And I'll go back to Bret Hart. The first guy to go through a table was Bret.
Yeah.
It was Bret's deal he brought in. Bret brought in the ladder match. The ways that people were doing it, and we did it a little bit differently. There were nuances. I'll never forget Mick Foley wanting to go through a table, but he didn't want to go through a table. He wanted to be planted in it head first.
Yeah.
And made a hole in the table, which was unique. No one had ever done that.
Yep.
So there were elements that, oh, God, they're going through tables. It was like, well, you know what, guys, we did it before. We just didn't do it every week. We didn't do it 3 times a show. It wasn't somebody's gimmick to go through a table. As far as the influence, they were able to expose guys like Dean Malenko, like Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, that didn't get a lot of, they were smaller guys that ordinarily they wouldn't be looked at by the WWF because of their size. Great talents. Paul showcased that. And I give him tons of credit for that, man, because nobody else was doing it. And what they delivered made people go, wow. And I'll just give credit to Eric, because where he says, well, let me take these guys, let's have a train wreck. I'm going to take these smaller guys, I'm going to take the luchadors, I'm going to throw them in there. Guys, just give me a train wreck. The audience hadn't been exposed to that before, and they liked it. It was different. It was different than the 2 big guys just locking horns. Mm-hmm. And I think Paul, I credit Paul for exposing those guys, because it was the first time they really had any exposure north of the border.